Hi, I'm Matt Burns. This is my steering wheel as always. It is currently June 3rd or 2nd? It's June 3rd, 2025. It's a Tuesday. Last week was my birthday party. Organized, I had about 45 people there. And I actually recorded this thing that I want to talk about now yesterday, but my phone got too hot and didn't save any of it. So I'll talk about it today. Had my birthday party last Friday. Ooh, a little scoochy there. Had my birthday party last Friday. There were about 45 people there, some of which I met in college, some of which I met after college, and some of which I knew from high school, and even some friends from as early as 5 years old. So we had a great time. It was a potluck. A bunch of people came together. Had a great time. And in the midst of me hanging out with some of my longer time friends since high school or whenever, I was talking about all different kinds of stuff from back then, dumb decisions we made, dumb things we did, funny stories, good and bad. But recently I've been reflecting a lot on negative things. Feels like maybe the last year and a half I've been focusing on just bad things that I've done in the past. It's been really hard to let go of things. I'm not sure why it's been so bad recently, but it's much more easy for me to think of all the things that I've done wrong than anything I've done right. But anyways, just went down that rabbit hole. A couple of my friends and I, we were talking about a friend that we had for a brief period of time. He was kind of sometimes a friend, sometimes really annoying, sometimes we weren't always friends with him, but he was a grade below us, so he was a little bit younger than us. And I had gotten a notification on my phone the day after my birthday party, which would have been May 31st, that it had been his birthday party on May 30th. And it just so happened that we were talking about him on during my birthday party. And we were talking about just dumb things we did and bad decisions we made and reckless behavior and funny stories stemming from those reckless things. But we were kind of I wonder what happened to him. And because he kind of fell off the map years ago. And I have him on Facebook, although he hasn't used it since we were 13 or something. And I found him on Facebook. That's how I knew it was his birthday. And I was like, okay, well, I'll check up and see if I can find anything about him. Because last I knew, he was wandering the country, maybe a bit nomadic, maybe homeless. And I looked him up, and shock, I saw him in the obituaries from a couple months ago in March. And yeah, so dark turn, turns out he passed away in March. And it was just weird because, yeah, I've had a couple friends die at this point. And they were in different circumstances than this. This was sort of a circumstance where I think his life had sort of gotten off track and maybe he OD'd on something. I'm not certain, but it definitely stems from his use. And, it got me reflecting a lot. I've thought about my friends who have passed, and it can be pretty hard. He was only maybe 25. He might not have even been 25 by the time he did go. But it was just interesting that we were thinking about him on his birthday. But I was thinking back to my childhood, and he actually lived right at the end of the road on the street I lived on. And for a spell, I was close with him. There was a lot of time that I wasn't close with him, but there were a couple months where we were really, really close. I was staying the night at his house a lot with him and his sister, and hanging out with other friends there too who had crashed there. And we got into some dumb stuff. He was a couple years younger than his sister. His sister was a senior. He was a freshman. I was a sophomore, maybe a junior, and he was a sophomore at the time or something like that. His sister went off to college. But we got into some dumb stuff. And one of the things that I have thought about is the idea of how much of a role did I play in him going down the wrong path. Because, quite admittedly, we weren't doing the most kosher things in the times that we hung out. But he was sort of a minority in the school, not racially. And I was definitely a minority in the school, definitely racially. And I think that we connected on some of those levels. But he was a kind kid when you got to know him. He could kind of be a douchebag if you didn't know him, maybe. But that's how people are sometimes. And I actually didn't like him at first, and then we started hanging out, and I enjoyed his company and thought he was actually pretty nice once you got to know him and get through his quirkiness. But yeah, I found that at times when bad things happen, I already said what kind of role did I play in him going down the wrong path. Clearly I can rationalize that it's been like 10 plus years, and everybody who's part of anybody's life is part of them going down whatever path. And so I can't be placing blame on myself and stuff like that. But I often find that when something goes wrong, I do find a way to think of the worst things and the worst circumstances. So in a situation as dire, literally, as that, it is easier actually for me to like look at myself from a larger scope and sort of like bird's eye view my life and be like, okay, we can clearly see this is not my fault. And I'm not saying that it's my fault, but when I am thinking negatively, I am thinking about, maybe if I could have been, a slightly better influence, maybe things wouldn't have gone that way. But even that is not fair for me to think. But it helps me when I have situations as extreme as this. It helps me put things into perspective and go, this isn't my fault. I need to take a step back in all the things that I'm doing and understand that there's only so much I can do. There's only so much I can say. I am a product of my past, but my past is also behind me, and I can outgrow it and I can move beyond it. But I was talking to my girlfriend about that last night, and one of the things that I had wrote down when I journaled yesterday was, it's easier to let go when I think about the obligations of joy to others and to myself. When I'm weighed down by these things, they're taking so much of my emotional bandwidth and mental bandwidth, and that is emotional bandwidth that my joy cannot use up, or that my joy with other people cannot use up. And therefore, when I'm spending that time ruminating on those things negatively, I'm literally losing time and energy to have good experiences with myself or with the people around me. So when I can think about it that way, like a lot of times when I ruminate on problems, I will just ruminate on them and not really consider the fact that I could have been doing something else, or something else could have been taking up my time. I just go, well, this is an affliction I have, right? Just something that occurs, and I can try to get rid of them. But when I think about an obligation to myself and others, it makes it a little easier, because I go, well, if I'm doing that, then I'm not doing this thing that I'm obligated for myself and for others. I'm not obligated in the sense that anybody thinks that I'm obligated to have joy around them, but I feel a sense of obligation towards the people around me, because I know what I want for myself. I know what I want for myself, if I didn't already say that, and to myself. So I decided that I'm going to end this little video with positive reflections on myself, and maybe I'll do that for a while until I can accurately reflect on my positive points without somebody dying. So, number one, I give others grace. There's a lot of things that people have done to me that I have forgiven, that other people have not forgiven me for, and I have forgiven people. And I know that for 99.99% of all people, that if something goes wrong between us, you and me as a friend, I will figure out a way on my end to make sure that that's mended over. Is it always the right thing to do? Maybe not. but I know that I'll give that grace to others, and if other people are willing to work with me, then I'm willing to work with them. And if you're both willing to work together, I don't see any problem. 2, I am determined to provide support for the people around me. I've done a lot to help people around me that are really, really close to me. Sometimes it's been out of fear of my own self and using them in a way to avoid my own problems. I will offer somebody else the world, and at times I have not offered myself that. And that is what I have to be careful of. But the bottom line is that I am willing to be there for people, and the people that I care about deeply, I will be there for them in many ways. My phone's gonna die. I bring all kinds of people together. My birthday party had like 45 people there. They were all cool. They all didn't know each other, and they had a great time together. That's it. Have a good one. Bye-bye.